Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. With us on this special Michigan Game Day edition of the show is beat writer Nick Baumgardner from The Athletic. But first, my view from Section 17 to get us going. Does it get any better than what we witnessed last Saturday in the Big House? College football observers said it would take near perfection to beat Ohio State, and while we weren't perfect, we were determined and we were dominant. I said last week, at some point we as a fan base and a team had to say enough. You might be more talented than us. You've beaten us 17 of the last 20 years, but this is the day it ends. We have to want it more than they do, and we did. We will be talking about this game for as long as Michigan plays Ohio State. It was as if years of frustration were washed away on a snowy cold afternoon in November against our very bitter rivals. It felt good because we deserved it. We wanted it more as a team and as a fan base. We need to remember how that felt and build on it. Hats off to Jim Harbaugh and his team. Jim told us in September there is something different about this team. We've heard that so many times in the past that we just roll our eyes and say, okay, enough talk, just show us. They did. It was a game to remember, and hopefully a new beginning, as Jim said after the game. My guest today says the national media and talking heads say they didn't see this coming, but our local writers and we fans saw it building. He says this team is very special and it's not done. Up next is beat writer Nick Baumgardner from The Athletic, so stay with us. Here with us on our game day segment this week to take another glorious look back at what happened Saturday in the Big House and then a peek ahead to Saturday in Indianapolis is Nick Baumgardner from The Athletic. Nick, great to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Mike.
Well, Nick, you and I have been doing this for over a decade now, and
How about that? Wow.
Yeah, but in that decade, we have never had a chance to talk about Michigan beating Ohio State or, lo and behold, going to Indianapolis to play in the Big Ten championship game.
Wow.
And even if we thought it might happen, we didn't think it would be this year, did we?
No, not really. And it's funny you mentioned before I started the Big Ten championship game. I said this to somebody earlier today. I was like, I totally forgot that was even a thing that they were going to do until I got downstairs because it was just not on my mind. But yeah, this was a weird one. I think for me going in, and like we were talking before we hit record, a lot of people had just, I think, and I can't blame them. They just sort of assumed that, well, this was going to be exactly like what we saw in 2018, that Harbaugh had, a good football team with a good offensive line and, it was a solid group that played hard, and they were going to come into the Ohio State game and try to bully it down their throat, and they were going to get shoved back down their throat, and it was going to be over before it started. I think that's what everyone thought was going to happen, except probably those of us who watched Michigan every game all year and knew that Michigan's offensive line was different than just another good offensive line. So for me, and I think a lot of people who thought the same way that I did, and maybe you're the same, Mike, that you thought they had a chance if everything went the way that it needed to go. Like if all the guys on Michigan's side played their best game of the year, then they were going to have enough with the offensive line and some of those playmakers, Haskins and whoever else was healthy to have a chance to do it. And so it wasn't the most shocking thing I've ever seen, but it was very surprising. I did not expect it to be that physically, dominant, basically for Michigan to do it the exact way Harbaugh wanted to do it and no compromise. I mean, that was very, very impressive. The most impressive win Harbaugh's had by a mile, and one of the most impressive wins I think we've seen in college football in a minute. For a coach to be able to do it that way and flip it like that is very, very impressive.
Oh, absolutely, especially after as much TV and as much reading as our listeners do online. If you listened last week, you had to be a little bit depressed because everyone that knows a lot about college football really did not give Michigan much of a chance in the game. And if they did give them a chance, they said, well, if they play perfect, they could be in the game. And, okay, we had one pick, but I think that's as close to perfect as we're going to get. And you know what? What it boils down to is it didn't have to be perfect, but we needed a supreme effort. And you needed your key players to come up big, check all those boxes.
Right. That's exactly what it was. Because to your point, Mike, I don't think it was perfect. I think they left points on the field. I think they could have scored more. I think they could have played, possibly better. And I think that was why, for a lot of us, it was like, whoa, okay, that's what we've been asking, I think, a Michigan team to show for a while, right? Like, are you going to be the team that we know Jim Harbaugh team can sort of be, the confident, tough, physical team that plays with swagger on the field because they're just not going to back down from a fight like that? The best Harbaugh teams, and I'm talking not just Jim, John Harbaugh, the whole thing, because I think that you have to look at this from the whole picture here, with the way John Harbaugh helped him this year in pointing him toward Mike McDonald and Matt Weiss and everything else, and them sort of grounding themselves back here at Michigan in the philosophy of we're going to run downhill, we're going to be smart about it and be spread out, and we're going to be efficient, but we're going to do the things that we came here to do 7 years ago, or we're going to die trying. And I think that this is what the results were. It was the right mix at the right time. They've recruited the lines well, especially the offensive line. I think moving Sharon Moore over there this year was a roll of the dice, but a calculated one, and it paid off big time. I think that was maybe the most underrated move of the year that he made was promoting Sharon Moore, offensive line coach. Those kids love him. I mean, they all love the coaches on the staff, but I'm not sure I've seen a group like that be that close with an offensive line coach, immediately. So a lot of really good buttons pushed by Jim Harbaugh this year, and none bigger on a bigger stage than against Ohio State when it mattered the most.
No, absolutely. It was still just so surprising that it happened so quickly after all the revamping and the tumultuous offseason, to put it mildly. And I was thinking, as I looked back at this year, one of the comments that sort of struck me in September popped up in my mind last week when Northern Illinois' coach said after Michigan beat them, he said, this team is built to beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking,
well, he was on to something.
He's right. I still thought, well, we might be, but we're going to have to throw the ball, do some things better than we have in the previous 11 games. But I think he nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's right, because I think at the time when you looked back and you started to think about it more, all of their game plans over the years, I think, had always been built to beat Ohio State. But this team really, especially in the lines and especially with what they were doing in terms of really giving the game over to them. The athleticism they had up front this year was different. I mean, and they have been recruiting well on the lines, especially on the offensive line for years, but it was good enough. And it had been good enough, I think, in the last couple of years. You just needed more around them. But it was different this year in that, you know, they were athletic enough to block wide. They could block all fronts. Harbaugh talked today about Eric All being a part of that. You know, he finally crossed the plane from promising prospect to legit football player. And you had, you know, suddenly this athletic, physical, tough-minded run game that, exactly, Mike, it was built and leaned on to say that this is the best thing we have, and we're going to completely put all ammo behind it and dare them to stop it. That's what, you know, Harbaugh said it the other day. They decided they were going to run the ball like this against Ohio State in the spring. And all things I was told back then, that backs up. That he's not making that up. I mean, that they were convinced in the spring that this line could be legit, and they told themselves, like, you know, Cade McNamara is our best chance right now to keep this thing on track. And if we can get behind this offensive line and let them do their thing, then that's our best path. And they were right, and they, you know, stuck to their guns despite a lot of people chirping at them, right? Like throughout the year, bench this kid, do this, do that. No, I mean, they stuck right to it. And yeah, I mean, ultimate credit to Jim Harbaugh. That was, he talks about Clint Eastwood wins and things like that. That was a Clint Eastwood season, I would say, if ever there were one. From the old Bowl coach there. That was impressive.
Yeah, and you know, before the game started Saturday, what I really believed was in the first two series, we have to make something happen. We have to get more than threes on the board. Have to be positive. Have to get Cade some confidence. But when Ohio State deferred and decided to kick off, I thought, well, this is exactly what Michigan needs. Take the ball, move it down the field. However we do it, you know, mix it up. But we just said, here we come. And to me, that set the tone. That first drive, in my mind, it did for me anyway, and I'm sure it did for the Michigan offense. It set the tone.
Absolutely did. And it was very familiar to me to the first drive Josh Gaddis had in 2019. It was very similar. They came out and thumped them, and they hit them with some things that they weren't ready for and gave them some things that it kind of announced to Ohio State, like, hey, we can do this today to you guys, and this is how it's going to be. The difference, I think, though, for me, and I would agree with you completely that that's the tone, and the difference between this game and the last one, and even though they let them off the hook in this one, was that the next drive, Ohio State didn't just get the ball back and then walk down the field and score a touchdown. They had to punt. Like, I mean, it was very different when Michigan would come out defensively in this game after they were able to build a nice drive. And that was, you know, it wasn't perfect. Ohio State moved the ball like everyone knew they would. But they created enough stops and they created enough sort of like friction to get in the way and give the offense a chance to do what it does. And to me, that was the thing that I thought, okay, this is different, because when the defense got like two stops, straight up stops, just clean 3-and-out punt it in the first quarter, I was like, that's not something we see in this game. I mean, we just don't. Ohio State turns that ball like we've seen over and over. And I think Michigan in the lines on both sides was ready to go in a way that we haven't seen in a long time, and that was the difference.
You know, absolutely, I agree with that. And, you know, another thing in those first two drives that sort of jumped out at me was Hassan Haskins. We've seen him in the previous 11 games carrying 4 or 5 guys. I mean, 4 and 5 yards at a clip. And I'm sure Ohio State saw that on tape and thought, he ain't going to do that to us. But on those first two drives, that is exactly what he did.
It's like I tweeted it during the game. Like, there's nobody else you'll find in football that moves a pile quite like Hassan Haskins. I mean, that thing he does where he'll, you know, and his line, I think, it gives him this ability to do this, but he'll sort of find his whole stop almost, gather himself, and then just unload with his shoulder and just completely move like 6 people. I mean, he's a hammer, you know, all the way, and he's gotten so much better too. You know, I still remember talking to. I think it was Gaddis after the 2019 game when they had that play drawn up in the fourth quarter. You know, Bredesen came through the line on a power play, and it was wide open, and Haskins missed the hole. It was going to be a touchdown, and they were going to be right back in the game, and they thought, man, we're right there, and Hassan has gotten so much better if that could have hit, you know, and he just kept grinding. Like a lot of these guys, you know, they were very close in a lot of different little things, little areas over the years, and Haskins is another one that's a perfect example of why this team is different. That's a kid who, and you know this, Mike, you know, I think they moved him to defense twice. Mm-hmm. He was back and forth. I mean, never had a home, could have left 1,000 times, I'm sure, you know, like, you know, it was just keep going, keep figuring it out, find a way, be a consistent player, help the team, never complain, and just always show up and work. And there's a bunch of those guys, and Haskins and Josh Ross and Vastardis are the ones that, Harbaugh points to a lot, but there's a lot of them on this team. Donovan Jeter, guys like that probably don't get as much of the fanfare this week that deserve it, because there's a lot of guys on there on that team that could have gone the other way and let the whole thing go to hell, and they didn't. And so, credit to them for sure.
Just a bit more time, Hassan Haskins. I don't know if our fans appreciate what this kid does every Saturday, because we're so used to watching pinball football now, spread offense, multi-purpose backs. This kid truly is a throwback running back who sacrifices his body. The hits he takes during the course of a game, I don't know if he can stand up straight until Wednesday. I mean, you have got to give him so much credit. That is a very physical way to play football.
Well, I mean, he's a terrific player. He's been like this now for, I would say, last season notwithstanding. I mean, they found something with him at the end of 2019, and it just kept getting better and better. And, they love his personality and his work ethic and everything else. But, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's not a lot of backs in America that are asked to sort of take that sort of pounding and punishment and everything else. And to be the guy that always falls forward, I think, is what they ask Hassan Haskins to be. And I think about that a lot. I used to think about how much Harbaugh loved Davion Smith when he first got here, because Davion never fell backward. It was always you never tackled him for a loss. It might have been only a 1-yard gain 7 straight times, but it was never going to be a loss. And I look at Hassan as like a more explosive and kind of quicker version of that obviously, as we've seen with the leaps and everything else, can do some different things athletically, but it's the same type of mindset that that Harbaugh loves. The old Rob Lytle, the arrow through the snow. That's the whole thing that he always talks about. And I think Haskins he's right there. I mean, he's what Mike Hart and those guys, I'm sure, did to help him, this year probably is being understated here. But I also think that, a lot of it is just him. So many people talked last year about all the carry distribution and who got what and who didn't and all this stuff. And it was like, whatever. Hassan Haskins has been Michigan's best running back since the middle of 2019. And anyone who wants to claim otherwise is just full of it, because that's the reality. And, to see him get that recognition on senior, no cuts to anybody else. Blake Corum's great. Edwards is great. The rest of them have been good. Charbonnet was great. But nobody's been more consistent than Haskins. Nobody's been more consistent in the program, probably, really, in the last 2.5 years. And so those are the type of guys that you need to get through games like this. And those are the type of guys that you need to turn your program around. And, Michigan's got a bunch of them this year.
We do. Another kid I felt good for on Saturday, that was Cade McNamara. I'm sure it was the same for you. I mean, I got to the point mid-season where my inbox was filled with Cade's doing a good job until JJ's ready. Right. Cade is a game management guy. You get tired of hearing that, and I'm sure I know Cade has heard that, but other than that one pick in the end zone, which was, that was a bad pass, this kid is so workmanlike, and, we hear the word unflappable used about a lot of quarterbacks. He just does exactly what he needs to do to win. I mean, you can't ask for more.
Yeah, he's a winner. He's a winner. I remember in the summer, I joked that, he's the only player that came out to talk to us outside in the summer that spoke loud enough to where we could hear him over the cicadas. That is Cade McNamara. He's a very clear, concise, serious winner. Alabama wanted him badly in recruiting. They recruited him hard. They wanted him because of his he reminded them a little bit of Mac Jones in some of the, decision-making and the quick stuff that he's able to do. Obviously, he's not the same prospect, but I think there's some of that in there that you see come out this year that, Harbaugh said it today. There's not a lot of things that he does that are bad. You can really cut down if you want to and say, well, does he have an elite arm? Maybe he doesn't have an elite arm, but like Harbaugh said today, he's like, it's good enough. It's good enough to make all the throws. He's very quick with his decisions. He doesn't second guess himself. He doesn't linger on bad decisions. He moves forward and he works harder than anybody else, on the team. And, that's a quarterback. That's all Jim Harbaugh has ever been looking for since he got here, and, he was talking today. The last time I remember hearing him talk about a quarterback like that was Rudock. And it's reminded me of Jake Rudock. It's been a guy who's sort of put everything else aside and just came here to try to win games. And that's what Rudock was like, and it did wonders for him obviously that year, and it's been the same for McNamara. So, a great job by him, I think, of just putting the blinders on, Mike, and not worrying about anything else. No, how many quarterbacks in the country wouldn't have handled that, right? Like that situation where you get the freshman coming in. It's most. I mean, he is a rare exception in that conversation that handled it beautifully and was, that combination. I would argue the fact that they could bring McCarthy into games was something that teams had to prepare for that helped their offense become that much more dynamic. And it doesn't happen unless you have a quarterback who's starting, who is secure enough in himself to be okay with that. And, that is super, super special. And we talked about people not appreciating Hassan Haskins. Yeah, I don't think people are ever probably going to appreciate Cade McNamara enough for what he did for this team, because the amount of confidence I think he gave the whole offense by just being calm under pressure in ways that we haven't seen from Michigan quarterback in many years, I think just does so much for your team. It helps guys play better. And I think that was definitely one of those deals.
It does. And you even heard some of your offensive linemen and other players last couple of weeks, really, when talking about Cade, said they would say, he's our quarterback. He's my quarterback. So that offensive unit believes in him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the way. And I don't think that they don't believe in JJ, and he comes in the game and they're excited to see him chuck it around too. But McNamara has that, thing we've talked about, and it's funny over the years when you talk about transfer quarterbacks and what you lost when you brought a transfer in. What you lose when you do that is and it's nothing against the kid who comes in, but it's Cade McNamara came here as a freshman out of high school with a bunch of these kids. Some of them are offensive linemen here that block for him. He roomed with them in the dorms. He sweated with them in winter conditioning. He did all that stuff. He grinded with them and went through all the crap and has now come out the other side as, their leader and basically their captain. And I mean, those are things that I think over the years Harbaugh was trying to manufacture in other areas with his quarterback. And it was if you could just find one that you just clear the clutter, settle down on one, and let him grow, maybe this thing can kind of fall in line. But, Mike, I mean, that has seemed such a difficult task over the years that you wondered if it would ever really happen. And funny that it was this one. I mean, no one would have thought, right, when they signed Cade McNamara, that this would be the guy that fixed it for Harbaugh. But that's what it was. Crazy to think.
Another person I think we all need to give some credit to is from 3 years ago, speed and space, to this year, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but not exactly 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but pretty close. Josh,
3 yards in a vapor trail. How about
exactly. but Josh Gaddis deserves a real shout out too. I thought as the season progressed, beautiful game plans and play calling.
Josh Gaddis deserves a bunch of credit for, I think, as much as anybody, just sort of and the whole program needed this year, but just breathing, just breathe, do what you do best, be confident in yourself, and just do your thing. I think that everything Josh Gaddis has talked about since he came in the door here made a lot of sense, right? I've always thought that. He's always seemed like such a smart guy, but, he talks 1,000 miles an hour, and he's always so cranked up and just, constantly trying to prove something to somebody. And it was man, if you could just breathe, pull back on some of the stuff that was maybe cluttering things and just simplify this thing just right, it could be really good. And I think that, he talked in maybe this summer about, how much he was enjoying working with Sharon Moore and Weiss and those guys. And I think that the staff certainly probably helped Gaddis as well. But, you credit Josh, I think, for probably coaching within himself, for the first time. I think trying to just, Harbaugh said it so many times this year, we're just trying to move the ball. We're not trying to make any statements with anything else we do. We're just trying to gain yards. And at the end of the day, we're going to look up and see what happens. And I think that, Josh is one of those coaches that, Harbaugh took a chance on and talks so much about that, I have watched him for a while. I think he's a really smart guy. I know he can be good at this, but we're going to ride through the ups and downs together, and he's going to have to learn too. He's a young guy. And I think that this was a year where you saw him sort of take that next step, as a guy who really, I think, became more secure in what he could offer, and it felt like a confident offense all the way through. And you don't get that unless your coordinator is confident in everything that is touching it. And yes, I mean, well-deserved. He's up for the Broyles Award, I know. And all that is well-deserved, because I know, like a lot of people here, Gaddis has gone through a lot of ups and downs with people yelling at him and everything else. So well-deserved for him to get a game like that in the big stage.
Oh, absolutely. And we hear people say about offensive coordinators or coaches that they need to put their players in the best position to win.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we saw progress through the season is Josh and staff, got to give his staff credit, for, seeing as the season developed what they could do best with their talent. And in the last month, in November, for the first time in a long time, they started to do that with the talent.
Yeah, I think it took a while for Gaddis and everybody else. And I do think that at the end of 2019, they were getting closer. And then COVID happened, and, you lose touch with all this and everything. I think they just got back this year to figuring out the couple things that they did really well, perfecting those, and then adding layers on top of the base. Instead of starting with this giant pool of things you can do, they started with a small base of things and built that way. And, it really showed, because they always had a home base to go back to. They always had, some run stuff that they were always confident in no matter what. And you could see it in how Josh called the games and how, I'm sure he wasn't alone this year either. I'm sure Harbaugh and Weiss and the rest of those guys had a say in it too. That's what this felt like this year. More egoless, collaborative, everybody pitching in and everybody being willing to accept help from other people. That was something that wasn't happening here when Josh Gaddis first came onto the staff. And it wasn't just Josh's thing. It was everybody. It was a lot of people wanting to have their voice heard and not one person, everyone trying to make sure that it's one voice. And I think that over time, they've all gotten back to what it needs to be. And you know what? Josh Gaddis is the offensive coordinator, the leader of that room. He's a young guy, but they put a lot on his plate. And yeah, I think he deserves all the credit for helping Jim Harbaugh figure that out, helping him clear the clutter, get the right people, like you said, Mike, get the right people where they need to be and let them do their job. And I think that, terrific job by all those guys. And you got to start with Gaddis because it's his room and it's his offense, and he's the one that leads it.
No, I agree with that 100%. Another young guy that a lot of people were concerned about heading into the season, and then especially last week, was Mike Macdonald. The question all week was, for those of us that saw the Michigan State game, and then a day later we're hearing Mike Macdonald ask, how do you slow this offense down? You're thinking, probably not at all, but
right. Yeah.
What, I thought the game plan was outstanding. It all hinged, though, and we knew it would, on getting pressure on C.J. Stroud. And those of us who have been able to see Ohio State play this year, one thing, he really did not get a lot of pressure. I never saw games where he was really running around like he was on Saturday. And so, once again, that truly was the key, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's that extra half second that that's what they would take to kill everybody all year. It was, they would get whatever coverage they would get. They'd get Wilson and Smith and Jigba, or Olave in the slots there, and they'd run them down the routes, and they'd get to the top of the route, and no matter what the coverage was, if you got another half second for Stroud, those guys would wiggle or shake or do something and get open, and you couldn't cover them because it was just like, you can't cover these guys. They're so athletic. You can't cover them for more than 2.5 seconds. It's just not realistic. So much of it, yes. And McDonald has talked about this all year. And Michigan started pumping the Hutchinson for Heisman thing several weeks ago because I think, McDonald had said, quite frankly, he allows us to do things that nobody else would allow us to do. I mean, they take chances on defense because he can clean it up, and things like that, he's a complete game breaker. They jumped off sides 6 times. I mean, so much of that has to do with Aiden. And, he had 3 sacks and everything else, 15 pressures, whatever else it was. That's what it takes in a game like this to have a chance, to be in it, to have a even reasonable hope to getting the job done. But I would also go one step further because I think it's not just Aiden, because what the whole front 7 was able to do, and the back end does a good job too. Obviously, they didn't get beat deep and they were able to keep everybody in front of them. But what the front 7 did to sort the run and to fix that is, you'll probably never get enough credit on that one. People will never really know how hard that is because that's the whole game. That 9-on-7 stuff they talked about, the not being able to stop the run, not being able to run the ball when you need to run the ball in this game. That's what Ohio State has always been able to do in this streak. There were years where Michigan would defend the pass well. They would take it away, and it wouldn't matter because they go right back to the ground, and it would be 275 yards by whatever their starting back was, and you'd lose. And so that had to flip, and I think that Michigan found a way this year with a defensive coach that was willing to do different things. They played some gap and a half stuff up front. They were able to play with 2 safeties deep and not give up chunks inside because of that. He's a forward-thinking, modern defensive coordinator, and I think that what we learned this year and what a lot of people have learned in football over recent years is you have to listen to younger people in this game because it's moving really, really fast. A lot of stuff is happening at all times. These offenses change, the rules change, and if you're not defensively constantly thinking about ways to change, the big rap on Mike Macdonald this year, Mike, was nobody changes faster in college football defensively. If you find something other than this Michigan State game, that was the thing that I'd heard from offenses, that he changes faster than anybody else opponents play. If you find something that's working against them, they change immediately. And it's that is not what we've seen recently from Michigan.
No.
So very different, very needed, and just what the doctor ordered, I'd say.
Well, when I was watching the game for the umpteenth time on tape yesterday, I thought Joel Klatt had a really interesting observation late in the game. He said, one of the things that Mike Macdonald did that on the face of it seems simple is he changed some of the how Michigan was disguising coverages pre-snap. Mm-hmm. And he said a lot of teams did try to do that to Ohio State, but he said they didn't have David Ojabo and they didn't have Aiden Hutchinson.
Right.
And he said when Stroud looked at the defense, he had to make a decision, but when Michigan changed coverages, he had to make a second decision. Exactly. He was looking at the defense a second time, and he said that's one click when you have to think a second time. And he said when you have Aiden and Ojabo coming at you, that one click can cost you your head.
Oh, yeah. And I think the beauty of Ohio State's offense for Ohio State was and is and has been this year until Saturday was that, in a way, and unlike other places because of how athletic these receivers were, the coverage that you got didn't matter because they could get open in the middle of a play just by, like, turning one direction athletically in your corner or safety or whatever. Wasn't going to be able to keep up. So they were able to get chunks this year against defenses no matter what the coverage was. So there was often times where Stroud's read had to be nothing more than watching these receivers until they made some crazy cut and got open and like a freelance. And like, you know, if you took that away, then it was going to be more of a challenge because as you saw, he still threw for 350 yards in this game. Terrific player, all the things that we all knew. But if you could, like you said, Mike, if you could make him think 10 to 15 more times and hitch a couple more times, then it was going to give you opportunities in this game that you wouldn't get normally, and that's exactly what happened. And Aiden created just about every one of them, I think. So, I mean, and Ojabo with a handful there too, and that's what it takes.
Well, all season, you know, Jim had been saying this team was different. He could see it in their eyes, in how they worked, and how together they were. And, you know, we've heard coaches say that before, so, you know, when they say it in October, you say, sure. You know, but after they beat Ohio State on Saturday, I think they made believers of a lot of people, and we can say after 12 weeks, finally, this team really is different, aren't they?
Oh yeah, this is a special one, I think, and I think it'll be one that people probably appreciate more as they get further away from it because I think it happened so fast, and I think it hit them like a ton of bricks. I don't think people were ready for it. I don't think people entered this year ready for this to be possible. I think a lot of people entered this year tired and ready for anything different, and they didn't know what that looked like. A lot of people seemed to enter this year sort of confused. When I talked to them, you know, a lot of fans, people were hopeful, but guarded, right, and nervous and all these things. And as the year picked up, I think you could sort of see it for yourself. You know, everybody that pays attention as close as, you know, everyone who listens to your show, Mike, I mean, everybody saw it. You could see that there were just differences, you know, whether it be, you know, playing well on the road at Wisconsin and jumping around to the song there in the third quarter or fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Or, you know, playing so well down the stretch at Nebraska, you know, the Penn State game, you know, pulling that one out of the fire, losing to Michigan State and then getting up and continuing to keep going. Like, that's another one. I think that there's so many things you can point to this year that signal that this team was very different. And, you know, they were going to have to finish it off for everybody to probably see it. But I do think that as time goes on and you get further away from this team, people will probably appreciate it a lot more because, this was a tall task. I mean, to go from where they came from to get here, when you have the full context and you're able to sort of remove yourself from it and it's over with and you look at it, I think a lot of people will see just how difficult this all was because it's tall order here. This was a lot. A lot happened in a year to go from where they were to where they're at right now, and I don't think anybody thought it was really fully possible.
No, and, you know, after the game, I've never seen Jim Harbaugh more happy, more relaxed, having a great time with his team. You know, it was kind of like watching 7 years of frustration just being washed away in one afternoon. How big was this win for Jim Harbaugh and this program?
I mean, I think it was everything. I think it's I think he came into this year trying to rejuvenate his coaching career. I think he came into this year looking at himself in the mirror about, do I have this skill as much as anybody else in the building? And when someone has urgency like that at the top, you can't, and you work in there, and, everyone who's been around Jim Harbaugh knows how much this place means to him, Michigan, and how much Michigan means to him, and how much it meant to him that, and people don't think like this. They don't think he thinks like this, but it's real. He takes it real serious that the people here thought that much of him, and everyone would have said how ridiculous, right?
Mm-hmm.
To pick him as the coach 7 years ago. It was like the honor of his life to be in this situation. And I think to get over this hump, and that's why I think you heard him say the thing about that felt like the beginning of something, not the culmination of something. Because I think for him to be able to get over this hump, the sense that I sort of got was like, well, now he can go back to just being himself and not have to worry about anything else. Because, that's what this year was. They went back to doing things the way he wants to do it and not really caring if anybody cared. If you didn't care, you can leave. That's pretty much what it came down to. And, I think that he tried to change so many times in recent years, and rightly so, because things needed to be changed, that they probably changed too many times and he got too far away from what they needed to do. And I think that this year allowed him to get back to that. He tested himself. And he came out the other side better for it. And I think that that's why, you saw, what did he lose, 40 pounds?
Oh, yeah.
Something like this,
yeah.
A different person. And I think that he challenged himself that way, and his team answered the bell with it. And so, I think that's how he's looking at it. And we'll see, of course. You got to sustain it, and you got to do it again. But, I think that's why you see the bounce in the step, because this was such a hurdle. It was such a thorn in the side, right? Get it out of there. Just get it out of the way, and then not have it hanging over your head. And now maybe you feel like you can actually go to work and think about some other things in addition to, maybe this thing as well.
Another group of people I think needs deserves credit, Nick, is the crowd. I have been going to Michigan football games for a long time, since the 60s. And, we've all heard it. If you're a season ticket holder, that, you talk to the opposition, they'll say, this is a quiche crowd. They just, they cheer every so often. There have been moments, the triple overtime Michigan State game, the first game under the lights with Notre Dame. That was a crazy night. But this was, from the time the band took the field until the game ended, it was deafening.
It was deafening, and it was cool to see, because I really do think this has been a cool season to watch, just observe the fans, for me. Because I had a feeling deep in there that something like this was maybe possible, but it was like there was no way you could predict that, of course,
right.
and not lose all credibility back in the summer. But watching the fans sort of get it and realize what this was, I thought was pretty darn cool, and I think that that's what we saw culminate on Saturday. Everyone, including the team, fans, whatever, everyone that walked in the building that was for Michigan that day thought they were winning the game, and that's what it felt like to me. The fans were there all the way in for it. That was not a nervous crowd. That was a rabid crowd. They were ready to go. If there was nervous people in there, it was Ohio State people. Nobody wearing Michigan stuff was nervous on that day. And for whatever reason, it was one of those, maybe it was the snow, I don't know, but you're 100% right, Mike. The Notre Dame game, the first time they had the night under the lights, I think one time they played Wisconsin at night and ran them off the field was pretty impressive, but this was probably, and then the last time they beat Ohio State, of course, but that was more of a nervous day. This was not. This was like everyone was there to get some good feelings, one way or the other, right? That's what it felt like. And they all went home happy. So, it was a great crowd, great atmosphere. The snow probably didn't hurt, and it probably made for some good photos and good memories for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Well, it was phenomenal. So the 12th man, for the first time in a long time, made a big difference. And as you said, all the players mentioned that after the game, too. So here we are. We're over the Ohio State hump for a year, and you know what? The way it's been going for the last 20 years, that's good enough for right now. Heading to Indy for the Big Ten championship game, I still have to scratch myself in the head to say, are you kidding me?
Right.
And we get 10-2 Iowa on Saturday night. And, I was mentioning to you before we started taping that a lot of people say for Michigan, Iowa's like mini-me. If two teams meeting for the Big Ten Conference Championship, they basically play the same style of football. So I know they've taken a different route, and they've had their ups and downs this year. Your thoughts on the matchup, though, Nick?
I mean, like, there's going to be some hitting in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is – Iowa's offensive line is still one of the best. Linderbaum, the center, is a first-round pick. He's a terrific player. They have a very good run game, Iowa does, and they have a run defense that is going to be, a unique challenge all to itself, for Michigan's front. The difference in this game, though, and I think it's very similar. I think it's going to maybe cut close to what it was the last time these two teams played. The last time these two teams played, Kwity Paye, Aiden Hutchinson, and I think Michael Dana chased whoever Iowa's quarterback was all over the field all game long, and he couldn't do anything. I think that this feels similar because Iowa's quarterback situation is not good at all. Offensively, when they peaked earlier this year, they were really riding on being really sound and steady defensively, not giving you anything like they always do, and then having that great offensive line that was getting out in front of people, getting downhill, and then getting leads on people, and your quarterback just doesn't have to do anything. That's what they were doing. And then the minute they got to put in situations where the quarterbacks had to make plays, I think it got more challenging. So I like Michigan here in this one. I think this is a better matchup for them than Wisconsin would have been, given that Mertz was playing better. But we'll see. I mean, I'm not sure what Iowa team we're going to get here, or we're going to see, I guess, because they were playing really well at the beginning of the year, and then they were playing really kind of poorly for a minute, and then they gathered themselves and finished strong against the Nebraska team that was playing with nothing to lose. So I think it'll be a fight. I think it'll be a scrapper for sure, but I just don't know if Iowa has enough on offense to move the ball. I guess that'll be the big question.
Right, and their quarterback situation has been a little wacky the last couple of weeks. I mean, Friday they played two quarterbacks. Petrus, who, when you look at the numbers, I mean, Petrus is by far seen the most snaps, thrown the most passes, but they're playing Padilla also. I think they pretty much split evenly against Nebraska on Friday, and now they're saying on Tuesday they're going to announce who the starting quarterback is. That, to me, is where the game might turn.
Yeah, I think that's where I go back to, and I say that if you look at the other way, like Iowa's chance in this game is its quarterback has to play better than we've seen all season. And I just, given what Michigan's been able to do to quarterbacks this year with its pressure and everything else, I would think that Michigan defensively is going to be able to get itself in a good spot here, and then offensively you're just going to keep hammering. I think that's the name of the game here. Athletically and everything else, Michigan has more talent in this game. I think that holds up, but Iowa is tough. It's a team that you're going to have to take the game from. It's not someone that's going to roll over and just give it to you. It's going to have to be a pretty hard fought one, and one that might not get salted away until a lot longer than people want it to be because of just how this thing grinds out. And I think that's sort of how it always is when Michigan and Iowa play. It's a lot closer than anybody ever wants it to be, probably, but is how it is.
It is. They're a well-coached team, and I expect that it's going to be a hard-fought game into the fourth quarter, so I agree with that. So, final question before we let you get away, Nick. If Michigan pulls out the win on Saturday, they're going to be in the college football playoffs for the first time. Who else will be there will also be determined on Saturday. It's sort of a crazy weekend coming up. But the way this Michigan team is playing right now, peaking at the right time, getting healthier in a lot of areas too. If we get into the playoffs, I know you've got Georgia and whoever else is going to be there. I still think Michigan's going to be a tough out for anyone, don't you?
Yeah, because I mean, like they're just like we said earlier, they're a team that doesn't give anybody anything. They lost one game this year to a Heisman candidate who had to play the game of his life to beat them. I mean, that's what they have been all year. They've been a consistent 12. If we're going to fight 12 rounds, they're going to be there the whole 12. Like, that's what Michigan has been all year. I would expect nothing different from them in any game they play the rest of the way, even if it doesn't go the way they want. Like, that was the thing I kept telling people going into the Ohio State game. The only thing I can promise you is that they're going to play the full 4 quarters. They're not going to roll over and just give them the game. They're going to make them grind through it. So I kept saying to people, like, I think we're going to learn more about Ohio State in this game than we're going to learn about Michigan. I know all I need to know about Michigan. Like, their guts and everything else has been on display, all the things they've been through to come to this point. So, yeah, I mean, Georgia's going to have more talent if they face Georgia. If they have to play Alabama, it's probably going to be the same situation. Tennessee or Cincinnati, I think they like that matchup. But, I mean, it's going to be the same deal. You're just going to have to fight and scrap and see what you got and make them beat you. That's the best way that I think. And this is going forward, I think, how Harbaugh football is going to be. I mean, he's talked about, we want to be like the Ravens. And the Ravens, to me, are a team that just never backs down from a fist fight. They find different ways to do it. It's not one way, but if you get into a fight with them, you better be ready to go. And I think that's what Jim Harbaugh ball going forward will strive to become with how they recruit, how they develop, and everything else going forward.
Well, and first things first, we have to take care of the Iowa Hawkeyes Saturday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yep. First time in Indy, Big Ten Championship, so we'll see what happens. Yep. Got to come to play. Here with us on our game day segment this week has been Nick Baumgardner from The Athletic. Nick, always a pleasure having you on the show. And if we get past this weekend and live to play another week or 2 weeks, we'll look forward to getting you back on the show.
Absolutely, Mike. Take care.
On Quick Hits today, at Jim's presser on Monday, he didn't have much to say about injuries. All in all, we are in pretty good shape heading into the Big Ten Championship game on Saturday. On Thursday's Visitors Edition, I'm still scrambling for a guest. Everyone's schedule is a mess this week because things are happening so fast. We hope to have Iowa radio play-by-play voice Gary Dolphin on with us, but if he's tied up with Hawkeye basketball, we will get one of the beat writers on the show. All I can say is, wow, I am still on cloud 9 after last Saturday. So excited about our first appearance in the Big Ten Championship, but I still want to savor beating those Buckeyes as long as I can. It was just so sweet. If we can beat Iowa on Saturday night, you know what's next. A trip to the playoffs for the very first time. It's hard to even imagine that right now because I, like most of you, just did not see it coming this year. Make sure you join us again on Thursday for our Visitors Edition for a final preview of the Big Ten Championship game. Again, I'm not sure who our guest is going to be, but we will find someone from Hawkeye Nation. That will do it for this game day edition of the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until we meet again on Thursday, take care, and as always, go Blue.
Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!